The stars were quiet above the colony world of Lyra. It was a peaceful place far from the crowded trade routes of the galaxy. Most people came there to escape trouble. Farmers grew food in the wide green valleys. Scientists studied the strange plants that covered the mountains. Families lived simple lives and rarely worried about war. Among them lived a human named Ethan Ward and his wife, Lyra. Many who met them thought they were an unusual pair. Ethan was human. Lyra belonged to a gentle alien species known for healing and medicine. Yet somehow they fit together perfectly. They lived in a small house near the edge of a forest where silver trees glowed softly at night. Their life was simple. Every morning Ethan worked in his research lab while Lyra helped patients at the colony medical center. They were happy, and that happiness had started 10 years earlier. Back then, Ethan had not been living peacefully on Lyra. He had been dying. His small exploration ship had been attacked by pirates near an uncharted system. The ship crashed on a remote moon. Most of the crew never survived. Ethan was one of the few who did. Barely. He lay trapped inside the wreckage with serious injuries. His emergency beacon was damaged. No rescue ships answered his calls. Hour after hour passed. Then day after day. He believed nobody would ever find him. But someone did. A young healer named Lyra. She had been traveling with a medical survey team when she discovered the crash site. The others wanted to leave. The moon was dangerous. Pirates might still be nearby. Helping the survivor could put everyone at risk. But Lyra refused to abandon him. She stayed. For days she treated his wounds. For days she barely slept. She saved his life when nobody else believed he would survive. When Ethan finally opened his eyes, the first face he saw was hers. Neither of them knew it then. That single moment would change both their lives forever. Years later they married. Some people approved. Others did not. Mixed-species marriages were still uncommon in many parts of the galaxy. Some humans questioned Ethan's choice. Some aliens questioned Lyra's. Neither cared. They built their own future together. A future based on trust. A future based on love. For 10 years everything seemed perfect. Until the day Governor Zeron arrived. The announcement came suddenly. A powerful government official would be visiting Lyra. At first the colonists felt excited. Important visitors rarely came to their distant world. The excitement did not last long. Stories about Zeron spread quickly. He ruled several systems and was known for his harsh methods. People obeyed him because they feared him. Wherever he went, trouble followed. Even so, nobody expected disaster. The governor arrived with warships filling the sky. Dark vessels hung above the colony like storm clouds. Citizens gathered to welcome him. Soldiers lined the streets. Heavy armored vehicles blocked every major road. The atmosphere felt wrong. Too tense. Too controlled. Lyra noticed it immediately. So did Ethan. Something isn't right, Ethan told her quietly. Lyra nodded. She felt the same unease. Over the next few days, strange things began happening. Government officers started visiting research centers. Medical facilities received unexpected inspections. Private records were examined. Questions were asked. Lots of questions. One afternoon Lyra returned home looking worried. Ethan noticed at once. "What happened?" he asked. She sat down slowly. "Someone wants access to my research." Ethan frowned. "What kind of research?" "The treatment project." Ethan immediately understood. For years Lyra had worked on a medical breakthrough. Her discoveries could help cure diseases affecting dozens of species. The research was valuable. Extremely valuable. "Who wants it?" Ethan asked. Lyra hesitated. "Governor Zeron." The room became silent. Ethan did not like the sound of that. "What did you tell him?" "I said no." For a moment neither spoke. Then Ethan smiled softly. "You did the right thing." Lyra smiled back. But the worry remained in her eyes. 3 days later everything fell apart. The colony gathered in the central plaza for a public ceremony honoring Governor Zeron. Thousands attended. Ethan was busy at work and planned to arrive later. Lyra went ahead without him. It was the last normal decision either of them would ever make. The ceremony began peacefully. Then Ziron made an announcement. He claimed certain citizens were withholding information from the government. He claimed this behavior threatened galactic security. Many people looked confused. Then soldiers moved through the crowd. They stopped in front of Lyra. The entire plaza became silent. She stood calmly. Everyone watched. The governor pointed directly at her. "You possess research that now belongs to the Union." Lyra shook her head. "It belongs to the people it was created to help." Ziron's expression darkened. He hated being challenged, especially in public. He ordered his soldiers to seize her. Some colonists protested. Others begged them to stop. The soldiers ignored everyone. Lyra was dragged onto the stage. Still she refused to surrender her research. Still she refused to obey. The governor wanted more than her work. He wanted obedience. He wanted fear. Most of all, he wanted an example. The crowd watched in horror as she was publicly punished. Nobody dared interfere. Armed troops surrounded the area. One wrong move could start a massacre. Messages flooded across the colony. People called Ethan. Again, and again, and again. When he finally saw the alerts, his blood turned cold. He rushed toward the plaza. Every second felt like an hour. Every street seemed endless. By the time he arrived, the crowd was already dispersing. Soldiers were leaving. The ceremony was over, and Lyra lay motionless on the ground. Ethan ran to her. He dropped beside her and lifted her gently into his arms. For a brief moment her eyes opened. She saw him. A faint smile touched her face. "Ethan, I'm here," he whispered. "You'll be okay." But both of them knew that was not true. Tears filled Ethan's eyes. Around them, thousands watched in silence. No one knew what to say. No one knew what to do. Lyra struggled to breathe. Then she reached for his hand. There was one final thing she needed him to hear. "Promise me." Ethan leaned closer. "Anything." Her voice was barely audible. "Don't become the monster they think humans are." A single tear rolled down her cheek. Moments later, her hand fell still. The woman who had once saved his life was gone. The plaza became completely silent. Ethan did not scream. He did not shout. He did not threaten anyone. Instead, he sat there holding her hand long after the crowd had disappeared. As darkness covered the colony, he slowly stood. His face showed no anger. That frightened people more than rage ever could. He looked up at the stars. For a long time he said nothing. Then he activated an old communication device hidden beneath his jacket. A device nobody on Alara had ever seen before. The screen lit up. Ancient symbols appeared. Codes began transmitting into deep space, far beyond known borders, far beyond the maps of the Galactic Union. The signal carried only 6 words. 6 words that had not been spoken for more than 200 years. Commander Ward requests immediate fleet activation. And somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, forgotten warships began to wake. Far beyond the borders of the Galactic Union, beyond trade routes and military patrols, there was a region of space that appeared empty. Every star chart marked it as unexplored. Every navigation system warned ships to stay away. Most believed there was nothing there. They were wrong. The signal sent by Ethan Ward crossed that darkness in less than a minute. Then it reached its destination. Deep inside a hidden system, thousands of lights suddenly came alive. Machines that had slept for centuries began working again. Ancient reactors awakened. Massive shipyards filled with activity. Silent stations turned their sensors toward the stars. One by one, giant warships powered up. For 200 years, nobody had called them. For 200 years, they had waited. Now their commander had returned. A calm voice echoed through the largest command station. "Priority signal confirmed." Another voice answered. "Identity verified." A third voice followed. "Commander Ethan Ward recognized." Then came the final message. "Silent fleet activation authorized." Across the hidden system, thousands of vessels began preparing for departure. Meanwhile, on Alara, the colony mourned. The news of Lyra's death spread quickly. People left flowers outside the medical center where she had worked. Patients shared stories about how she had helped them. Families spoke about her kindness. Children remembered her smile. The entire colony felt the loss. But nobody felt it more deeply than Ethan. For 3 days, he remained inside their home. He spoke to no one. He answered no messages. Many feared what he might do. Others feared what he might become. Governor Zeron, however, felt no concern at all. He believed the matter was finished. To him, Lyra had simply been a problem that needed removing. Nothing more. During a private meeting aboard his flagship, one of his advisors looked nervous. "Governor, there is growing anger among the colonists." Zeron laughed. "Let them be angry. The situation may attract attention from higher authorities." Zeron leaned back in his chair. "I am the higher authority." The room fell silent. Nobody argued. Nobody dared. That was how Zeron ruled. Through fear. For years it had worked perfectly. He believed it always would. At the same time, strange reports started appearing throughout nearby systems. Long-range sensors detected unusual energy readings. Several monitoring stations briefly lost contact with one another. Navigation satellites recorded objects moving through deep space at impossible speeds. Most officials ignored the reports. The few who investigated found nothing. The mysterious readings vanished as quickly as they appeared. Only a handful of military analysts paid attention. One of them worked at a Union intelligence center. Her name was Captain Vessa. She studied unusual activity for a living. When the reports reached her desk, she noticed a pattern. At first, it seemed impossible. Then she checked again and again. Her concern grew with every review. Late that night, she accessed restricted historical archives. Ancient records appeared on her screen. Most were heavily classified. Many had not been opened in decades. One file immediately caught her attention. The title alone made her stomach tighten. The Silent Fleet. Vessa stared at the words. That name belonged to old stories. Legends. Warnings told to military officers during training. According to history, humanity once possessed technology far beyond anything known today. But after a series of devastating conflicts centuries ago, humans had chosen a different path. Their greatest weapons disappeared. Their strongest fleets vanished. Eventually, most species assumed those stories were exaggerated, perhaps even fictional. Yet the strange readings matched old descriptions perfectly. For the first time in her career, Captain Vessa felt genuine fear. The next morning, she requested an emergency meeting. Few took her seriously. Until she showed the data, the room became silent. One senior officer frowned. "You believe the Silent Fleet is real?" "I believe something is moving through deep space," Vessa replied. "And whatever it is, it belongs to humanity." The officers exchanged uneasy looks. Nobody wanted to believe her. Unfortunately, the evidence kept growing. Across Union space, sensors continued detecting impossible movements. Entire fleets appeared on scanners for a few seconds before vanishing. No known technology could do that. Rumors began spreading. Whispers moved from station to station. Ship crews discussed strange sightings. Merchants reported enormous shadows moving between stars. Fear slowly traveled through the galaxy. Back on Lyra, Ethan finally left his home. The colony was quiet. Many people watched from a distance. No one approached him. No one knew what to say. He walked through the streets where he and Lyra had spent years together. The market where they bought food. The park where they sat during evenings. The small cafe where they celebrated anniversaries. Every memory felt like a wound. Yet beneath the grief, something else was growing. Purpose. Not blind anger. Not madness. Purpose. Ethan understood something that many others did not. Lyra had not been killed because of a simple disagreement. People like Zeron always found new victims. If nothing changed, countless others would suffer the same fate. The problem was larger than one governor. Much larger. As sunset painted the sky with shades of gold and red, Ethan arrived at a hill overlooking the colony. There, a shuttle waited. Its dark surface reflected the fading light. The craft had landed without anyone noticing. Technology far beyond anything on Alara. The hatch opened. A woman stepped out. She wore a black uniform marked with unfamiliar symbols. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she lowered her head respectfully. "Commander." Ethan looked at her. It had been many years since anyone used that title. "Admiral Reyes," he said quietly. She studied his face. The grief was obvious. So was the exhaustion. But something else was there too. Determination. "The fleet is assembled," she reported. "All divisions are awaiting orders." Ethan remained silent. The wind moved gently across the hill. Far below, lights began appearing throughout the colony. Normal people were returning home, finishing dinner, spending time with loved ones, living ordinary lives, the kind of life Lyra had wanted. Finally, Ethan spoke. "How many ships answered the call?" Reyes took a slow breath. "Every one of them." For the first time, even she seemed uneasy, because she understood what that meant. Humanity's greatest military force had awakened. Not one fleet, not 10 fleets, all of them. The power hidden for centuries was now moving once again. Ethan looked toward the stars. Somewhere among them sat Governor Xeron, confident, protected, certain that nobody could challenge him. He had no idea what was coming. None at all. A small light appeared in the night sky. Then another. And another. Soon hundreds became thousands. Massive vessels emerged from hidden jump points around the system. Their arrival was completely silent. No celebration. No announcement. Only presence. The people of Alara looked upward in confusion. Nobody recognized the ships. Nobody knew their purpose. Yet every person felt the same thing. A sense that history had just changed direction. Admiral Reyes watched the fleet fill the heavens. Then she turned toward Ethan. "Your orders, Commander?" For several seconds he said nothing. His eyes remained fixed on the stars, on the endless darkness ahead, on the path that would decide the future of the galaxy. When he finally answered, his voice was calm, calmer than anyone expected. "Set a course for Governor Xeron's territory." Reyes nodded. "And after that?" Ethan's expression never changed, but the words that followed sent a chill through everyone who heard them. "After that," he said, "we begin uncovering the truth." And deep inside the flagship's command center, alarms suddenly activated. New intelligence reports had just arrived. Reports suggesting Lyra's death might not have been an isolated crime. Reports pointing toward something far bigger. Something hidden. Something dangerous. Something worth killing for. The silent fleet crossed the stars without announcing its presence. No broadcast. No warnings. No demands. To most of the galaxy, it did not even exist. Yet thousands of ships moved through deep space, carrying enough power to change the future of entire civilizations. Inside the fleet's flagship, Ethan Ward stood in a dark observation room. Beyond the glass stretched an endless ocean of stars. Years ago, he had looked at those stars with curiosity. Now he looked at them with questions. One question above all others. Why had Lyra really been killed? The official explanation made no sense. A governor as powerful as Xeron did not personally target a healer over a research disagreement. There had to be another reason. Something hidden. Something valuable. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. The door opened. Admiral Reyes entered. She carried several data tablets. "Commander," she said, "our intelligence teams found something." Ethan turned toward her. "What kind of something?" Reyes placed the tablets on a nearby table. "The kind people kill to protect." That immediately got his attention. She activated the first screen. A map appeared. Dozens of worlds flashed red. Ethan studied it carefully. "What am I looking at?" "Medical supply routes." His eyes narrowed. "Explain." Reyes took a breath. "Over the last 12 years, medicine shipments have been disappearing across multiple sectors. Pirates. That's what the reports claim." Ethan looked unconvinced. "And the truth? The shipments were never stolen." The room fell silent. Reyes brought up another file. Financial records appeared, then secret contracts, then classified communications. Each piece connected to the next. Patterns slowly emerged. The medicine had been redirected, sold illegally. Entire populations were left without treatment. Millions suffered. Millions died. And every trail led toward officials connected to Governor Zeron. Ethan stared at the evidence. His jaw tightened. This is bigger than corruption. Reyes nodded. Much bigger. The third file appeared. This one shocked even Ethan. The missing medicine was only the beginning. The network controlled food distribution, mining operations, military contracts, and scientific research. Anyone who threatened the operation disappeared. Some were arrested. Others simply vanished. No investigations followed. No questions were asked. Powerful people ensured that. Then Reyes opened the final file. A photograph appeared. Lyra. Ethan froze. The image showed her inside a laboratory several months before her death. She was speaking with a group of researchers. What is this? Reyes enlarged the file. 3 months ago, Lyra discovered unusual medical records. Ethan moved closer. His heart was beating faster now. What records? Evidence. The word hung heavily in the air. Evidence of what? Reyes looked directly at him. Everything. The room became silent. According to the investigation, Lyra had unknowingly uncovered proof of the entire operation. She discovered that diseases were being allowed to spread. Medical supplies were being withheld. Entire populations were being manipulated for profit. People were dying because someone was making money from their suffering. And Lyra had started asking questions. Too many questions. The moment she began connecting the pieces, she became dangerous. Not because of her research, because of what she knew. Ethan slowly closed his eyes. For several seconds, nobody spoke. When he opened them again, grief mixed with determination. They didn't kill her because she refused them. Reyes shook her head. No, they killed her because she discovered the truth. Yes, for the first time since leaving Alara, genuine anger appeared in Ethan's eyes. Not explosive anger. Not reckless anger. The cold kind. The dangerous kind. The kind that thinks before it acts. Meanwhile, far away in Governor Zeron's territory, trouble was beginning. Reports arrived daily, then hourly, then almost every minute. Sensor stations were detecting unknown vessels. Communication networks suffered mysterious failures. Supply depots suddenly lost access to their systems. Military commanders complained about missing information. Nobody understood what was happening. Governor Zeron became increasingly frustrated. His advisors stood nervously around a conference table. One officer cleared his throat. Governor, we may have a serious situation. Zeron rolled his eyes. You've said that every day this week. This time it's different. The governor leaned forward. Then explain. The officer activated a display. A list appeared. Military bases, shipyards, research centers, intelligence facilities, all highlighted in red. Zeron frowned. What is this? Our most important locations. I know that. The officer swallowed. Someone has accessed all of them. The room instantly became quiet. Zeron's expression hardened. Who? We don't know. That answer made things worse. Nobody had ever penetrated his security systems before. Nobody. Yet somehow an unknown force was inside everything. Watching, learning, collecting information, and leaving no trace. Elsewhere, citizens across several systems started receiving anonymous messages. Secret documents appeared online. Hidden financial records became public. Evidence of corruption spread faster than authorities could stop it. People were shocked, then angry, then furious. Protests began. Workers walked off job sites. Entire communities demanded investigations. For years they had believed shortages were unavoidable. Now they learned the truth. The shortages had been manufactured. Someone had chosen profit over lives. Someone had grown rich while ordinary people suffered. And for the first time, people knew exactly who to blame. Governor Zeron. Back aboard the flagship, Ethan watched the reaction unfold. "How many systems have received the files?" he asked. Reyes checked the latest reports. 37. And the response? A slight smile appeared on her face. "They're asking questions." Ethan nodded. Good. Questions were powerful. Questions forced people to think. Questions exposed lies. And lies were beginning to crumble. Yet something still bothered him. The evidence revealed enormous corruption. But there was a missing piece. Something didn't fit. Zeron was greedy, cruel, corrupt. But even this operation seemed too large for one governor. Someone else had to be involved. Someone higher. Someone hiding behind the shadows. As if reading his thoughts, Reyes spoke. "There is another development." Ethan looked at her. "What kind of development?" She activated a secure transmission. A face appeared on the screen. An elderly alien male. Tired. Nervous. Terrified. "I requested asylum," the stranger said. Ethan studied him carefully. "Who are you?" The alien hesitated, then answered. "My name is Draven Soul." Reyes folded her arms. He was one of Zeron's financial advisors. Ethan immediately understood why the man looked frightened. Traitors rarely lived long. "What do you want?" Ethan asked. Draven swallowed hard. "I know who ordered Lyra's death." The room froze. Every officer nearby stopped moving. Nobody spoke. Nobody even breathed. For months Ethan had searched for answers. Now one sat directly in front of him. He stepped closer to the screen. "Tell me." Draven's hands trembled. "You think Governor Zeron made the decision?" His voice grew quieter. But he didn't. Ethan felt a chill run through him, because he suddenly knew what was coming. The old advisor lowered his head. There is someone above him. Silence filled the room. A silence heavier than any weapon. Slowly Ethan spoke. "Who?" Draven looked up. Fear filled his eyes. The kind of fear people carry when speaking a forbidden name. Finally he answered. And the moment those words left his mouth, every person in the command center understood the situation was far worse than anyone imagined. Far worse than corruption. Far worse than murder. The enemy was not a governor. The enemy sat at the very heart of the Galactic Union itself. And Lyra had discovered their secret before anyone else. That was why she had been silenced. That was why she had died. And now, for the first time, Ethan finally knew where to look. The hunt was no longer for a criminal. It was for the architect behind an empire of lies. The command center remained silent long after Draven revealed the truth. No one moved. No one spoke. The information sitting before them changed everything. For weeks, Ethan had believed Governor Zeron was the enemy. Now he understood something far more dangerous. Zeron had never been the master. He had been a servant. Powerful servant, but still a servant. Someone else had been pulling the strings. Someone hidden behind layers of authority, wealth, and influence. Someone sitting near the very center of galactic power. Ethan looked at Draven's image on the screen. "Tell me everything." The old advisor nodded slowly. For years, he had carried secrets that could destroy governments. Now he finally had a chance to expose them. The organization calls itself the Circle. Several officers exchanged confused looks. None had heard the name before. Draven was not surprised. Most people haven't. A new image appeared behind him. It showed 12 figures seated around a circular table. Their faces were hidden. Their identities protected. Only their titles appeared. Sector Director, Economic Overseer, Military Coordinator, Intelligence Supervisor, Resource Minister, and several others. Ethan studied the image carefully. What exactly is this group? Draven sighed. The real rulers of the Union. That statement hit the room like an explosion. For centuries, citizens believed elected leaders controlled the Galactic Union. According to Draven, that was only partly true. Behind every public decision stood the Circle. They manipulated elections, controlled information, directed military actions. and influenced economic policies. Official governments still existed, but many of them unknowingly followed plans created elsewhere. Plans designed by people nobody ever saw. People who never appeared in public. People who preferred shadows. The more Draven explained, the worse it became. Entire conflicts had been secretly encouraged. Resource shortages had been created intentionally. Medical crises had been allowed to continue. Every tragedy increased profits. Every disaster expanded influence. The circle grew stronger each year, and almost nobody realized it. Then Draven showed the final piece. Lyra's file. A red warning symbol covered the screen. Threat level. Critical. Ethan's eyes narrowed. What is this? Draven answered quietly. Her death order. For a moment nobody breathed. There it was. The proof. The order authorizing Lyra's removal. Not signed by Governor Zeron. Signed by the Circle. Ethan stared at the document. His wife had never been a target because of her research. She became a target because she followed the evidence. Because she refused to ignore suffering. Because she cared. And that care brought her too close to the truth. Finally, Ethan spoke. When did they issue this order? 6 months ago. The answer made his stomach tighten. 6 months. That meant they had watched her for half a year. Tracked her movements. Monitored her work. Studied her conversations. All before deciding she had to die. For several seconds, Ethan remained silent. Then he looked toward Admiral Reyes. Find every member of the Circle. Reyes nodded immediately. We already started. Good. Because the hunt had officially changed. The target was no longer one corrupt governor. It was an entire hidden empire. Meanwhile, panic was spreading throughout Union space. The documents released by the Silent Fleet continued appearing across communication networks. Every day brought new revelations. Every day exposed another lie. Citizens who once trusted their leaders now demanded answers. Investigations began. Protests filled city streets. Workers abandoned factories. Government offices struggled to maintain control. The pressure increased everywhere. And fear was spreading among the powerful. Especially inside the Circle. Deep within the Union capital, a secret meeting was underway. 12 individuals sat around a massive black table. Most appeared calm. One did not. Governor Zeron. His confidence had vanished. For the first time in years, he looked frightened. A woman seated across from him spoke coldly. You failed. Zeron clenched his jaw. The situation is under control. No. Her voice remained perfectly calm. It is not. Nobody argued. Because everyone knew she was right. Entire sectors were becoming unstable. The public was demanding investigations. Military commanders were questioning orders. Information that should have remained hidden was spreading everywhere. The Circle had spent decades building its influence. Now cracks were appearing. All because of one human. One human whose wife they had murdered. An older member leaned forward. How much do we know about Ethan Ward? A silence followed. Finally, an intelligence director answered. Very little. The room became uncomfortable. That answer was unacceptable. The Circle possessed information on billions of citizens. Yet they knew almost nothing about the man threatening them. Impossible, someone said. It should be. The intelligence director swallowed nervously. But it isn't. He activated a display. A human face appeared. Ethan Ward. Simple. Ordinary. Unremarkable. Then the record stopped. Large sections were completely blank. Entire decades missing. Military service unavailable. Government records unavailable. Historical archives restricted. The deeper investigators searched, the less they found. As if someone had erased him from history. The woman who had criticized Zeron studied the screen. Who is he? Nobody answered. Because nobody knew. And that uncertainty frightened them more than any fleet. Far away, aboard the flagship, Ethan was receiving reports from intelligence teams. One by one, pieces of the puzzle came together. The Circle had hidden assets everywhere. Secret accounts. Private armies. underground research facilities, illegal prisons, hidden weapon stockpiles, a network built over generations. Destroying it would not be easy, but Ethan was patient. Unlike his enemies, he was not rushing. He understood something important. Powerful systems rarely collapse from a single attack. They collapse when truth removes the foundations beneath them. That was exactly what he intended to do. Hours later, another report arrived. This one caught his attention immediately. A hidden detention facility had been discovered. Officially, the facility did not exist. According to records, it was an abandoned mining station. Reality told a different story. Thousands of prisoners were held there. Journalists, scientists, investigators, whistleblowers, anyone who became inconvenient, anyone who learned too much, anyone who asked dangerous questions. Ethan felt anger rise again. Not because of politics, not because of corruption, because innocent people had suffered, and nobody had helped them. He turned toward Reyes. Prepare a rescue operation. She smiled slightly. I was hoping you'd say that. 3 days later, the mission began. The detention facility floated near a dead star. Far from public attention. Far from witnesses. The perfect place to hide secrets. Security commanders never saw the silent fleet coming. One moment everything appeared normal. The next, their systems failed. Communication networks went dark. Defense platforms shut down. Doors unlocked throughout the station. Not a single shot was fired. The operation lasted less than 20 minutes. When it ended, over 4,000 prisoners were free. Many had spent years trapped inside the facility. Some believed nobody remembered them. Some believed they would die there. Instead, they walked into freedom. News of the rescue spread rapidly. For the first time, public opinion began shifting. People no longer saw Ethan as a mysterious threat. They saw him as someone exposing injustice, someone helping victims, someone challenging powerful people who believed themselves untouchable. And that frightened the Circle more than military power ever could. Because weapons can destroy ships. Truth can destroy empires. Later that evening, Ethan stood alone inside the observation room. Stars drifted past the glass. The fleet moved steadily toward Union space, toward the people responsible, toward the center of the storm. A message suddenly appeared on his private screen. Contained only one sentence. No sender. No identification. Just a warning. They know you're coming. Ethan read it twice. Then a second message appeared. This one was worse. Much worse. And they have already prepared their trap. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt genuine concern. Not fear for himself. Fear for everyone traveling with him. Because enemies who controlled half the galaxy would not surrender quietly. They were preparing something. Something desperate. Something dangerous. And whatever it was, the next stage of the war was about to begin. The warning stayed on Ethan's screen long after everyone else had gone. They know you're coming. And they have already prepared their trap. Most commanders would have changed course. Some would have slowed down. Others would have hidden and waited for more information. Ethan did none of those things. Instead, he called a meeting. Within minutes, senior officers filled the command chamber. A giant star map floated above the central table. Red markers covered several sectors. Each one represented a circle-controlled location. Admiral Reyes looked around the room. Let's hear it. A young intelligence officer stepped forward. We believe the Circle is gathering military forces near the capital region. How many? Reyes asked. The officer hesitated. More than expected. That was never a good answer. He expanded the map. Thousands of symbols appeared. Gasps spread across the room. Battle groups, defense fleets, carrier formations, planetary shields. The Circle was no longer hiding. They were preparing for war. A real war. Ethan studied the display carefully. The enemy had concentrated forces around 3 major systems. At first glance, it looked like a defensive formation. Then he noticed something strange. The arrangement made no military sense. Not unless... His eyes narrowed. It's bait. Several officers looked at him. Reyes folded her arms. Explain. Ethan pointed toward the star map. They want us to attack these positions. The room became quiet. As the officers examined the data, they began seeing it too. The defenses looked powerful. Too powerful. Almost as if someone wanted them to be noticed. A trap hidden inside another trap. The Circle wanted the silent fleet focused in one direction while something happened elsewhere. The question was simple. What? Hours later, the answer arrived. And it shocked everyone. A distress signal appeared from the planet Valora, one of the largest civilian worlds in the region. Home to nearly 8 billion people. The message was chaotic. Emergency broadcasts flooded communication channels. Military ships surrounded the planet. Orbital weapons had activated. Nobody was allowed to leave. At first, the reports seemed impossible. Then intelligence teams confirmed the truth. The Circle had taken an entire planet hostage. Inside the command center, anger spread quickly. They're using civilians as shields, one officer said. Another shook his head. They're desperate. No, Ethan knew better. Desperate people make mistakes. The Circle was still calculating, still planning, still believing they could win. The hostage situation was not a panic response. It was strategy. If Ethan attacked, billions could die. If he did nothing, the Circle gained time. Either choice benefited them. Clever move. A cruel move. Exactly the kind of move Lyra would have hated. Ethan looked at the planet's image. Cities covered entire continents. Families were trapped below. Children, workers, teachers, people who had nothing to do with the conflict. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Ethan made his decision. We're going to Valora. Some officers looked surprised. Reyes did not. She already knew. Because Ethan had never been fighting for revenge alone. If revenge were his only goal, he would have attacked weeks ago. He was fighting because innocent people kept getting hurt. And that meant Valora came first. Far away, inside the Circle's hidden command center, celebrations had already begun. Governor Zeron smiled for the first time in weeks. The human took the bait. Several members nodded. Everything was unfolding exactly as planned. Valora was merely the first stage. Once Ethan arrived, a chain of events would begin. Events designed to destroy the silent fleet forever. The woman who often spoke for the Circle leaned back calmly. He believes he's making the moral choice. Zeron laughed. And that is exactly why he'll lose. Nobody noticed the concern hidden in her eyes. Unlike Zeron, she had spent weeks studying Ethan. One thing bothered her. The human never behaved as expected. Every prediction eventually failed. Every trap lost effectiveness. Every advantage somehow disappeared. That uncertainty felt dangerous. Still, the plan moved forward. And there was no turning back now. 2 days later, the silent fleet reached Valora. What they found shocked even veteran officers. Hundreds of enemy warships surrounded the planet. Massive orbital platforms pointed toward the surface. One command could destroy entire cities. Billions of lives balanced on a single decision. Inside the flagship, tension filled every room. One wrong move could trigger catastrophe. Reyes studied incoming data. The enemy fleet is transmitting. A communication channel opened. Governor Zeron appeared. For the first time since Lyra's death, Ethan looked directly at him. The governor smiled. It was the smile of a man who believed he finally had control again. Commander Ward. Ethan remained silent. Zeron continued. You've caused quite a bit of trouble. Still no answer. The governor's smile faded slightly. Perhaps we should discuss a peaceful resolution. Everyone knew it was nonsense. Even Zeron knew it. The conversation was theater. Nothing more. Finally, Ethan spoke. What do you want? The governor spread his hands dramatically. Simple. A new image appeared. It showed several giant structures hidden behind the fleet. At first, nobody understood what they were. Then the truth became clear. Bombs. Planet-killer weapons. Thousands of them. The room grew cold. Zeron enjoyed the reaction. If my fleet is attacked, Valora dies. The threat hung heavily in the air. Billions of civilians, gone in seconds. Even hardened officers struggled to remain calm. The governor leaned forward. "Surrender your fleet." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Ziron added one final sentence. "Or watch 8 billion innocents disappear." The transmission ended. Silence followed. Long, heavy, dangerous. Every person in the room understood the situation. This was exactly the trap. The Circle expected Ethan to choose between victory and morality. They believed no solution existed. Unfortunately for them, they misunderstood humanity. Again. Several hours later, preparations quietly began. Not for an attack. For something far more difficult. A rescue. The silent fleet possessed technology unknown to the modern galaxy. Most of it remained secret. Some of it had never been used outside simulations. Tonight that would change. Engineers activated ancient systems buried deep inside the fleet. Scientists reviewed calculations. Navigation teams worked without rest. The operation carried enormous risks. Failure meant disaster. Success would rewrite history. As the final countdown began, Ethan stood in the command center. Every officer watched him, waiting, trusting, ready. Reyes looked toward him. All units prepared. Ethan nodded. Begin. Across space, reality itself seemed to bend. Massive energy waves spread from the silent fleet. The stars appeared distorted. Enemy sensors immediately detected the anomaly. Panic erupted among Circle commanders. What are they doing? Nobody knew. Because nobody had ever seen technology like this. Not before. Not in recorded history. Not even in legends. Then it happened. In a single impossible moment, every civilian on Valora vanished. 8 billion people. Gone. Entire cities became empty. Homes. Hospitals. Schools. Every civilian had been transported safely away from the planet. The impossible had become reality. Shock spread through every fleet, every station, every government, every screen in the galaxy. The Circle's greatest shield had disappeared. And with it, their advantage. Inside the enemy command network, chaos exploded. Orders contradicted one another. Ships repositioned. Commanders panicked. The trap had failed. Completely. Meanwhile, Ethan looked at the star map. Valora was safe. The civilians lived. Now nothing stood between the silent fleet and the people responsible. Nothing except the largest military force ever assembled. Thousands upon thousands of warships. A battle that would decide the future of the galaxy. Reyes slowly turned toward him. Her voice was calm, but everyone could feel the weight behind her words. "The civilians are secure." Ethan nodded. Then he gave the order that would echo through history. "Advance." Across the darkness, the silent fleet moved forward. And on the other side of the battlefield, the Circle finally understood a terrible truth. They were no longer controlling events. They were surviving them. The final confrontation had begun. And before it ended, the galaxy itself would never be the same again. The stars above Valora disappeared behind fleets. Thousands upon thousands of warships filled the darkness. For the first time in modern history, nearly every major military force in the galaxy stood in one place. Some fought for the Circle. Some fought because they were ordered to. Some simply feared what would happen if they refused. Across countless command bridges, nervous officers watched the silent fleet advance. No battle cries, no threats, no grand speeches, just a steady movement forward. That silence frightened many of them more than weapons ever could. Inside the flagship, Ethan stood before the main display. Reports streamed in from every direction. Enemy formations were repositioning. Defense lines were activating. Planet-killer weapons were preparing to fire. The Circle was throwing everything into the fight. They knew this was their final chance. Admiral Reyes stepped beside him. "Enemy fleets are moving into attack range." Ethan nodded. "Open a channel." Several officers exchanged surprised looks. They expected battle orders. Instead, Ethan wanted communication. Seconds later, a signal spread across the battlefield. Every ship received it. Military vessels, civilian observers, news stations, government networks. The entire galaxy listened. Ethan appeared on millions of screens. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then he began. I am not here to conquer anyone. His voice was calm, steady, human. The people responsible for this conflict have hidden behind others for too long. Images appeared beside him. Evidence collected over months. Financial records, secret prisons, illegal experiments, corruption, murders, everything. The truth spread instantly. People across the galaxy watched in disbelief. Many had heard rumors. Now they saw proof. Ethan continued. The circle built its power using fear. They convinced good people to obey bad orders. They convinced entire worlds to look away. The evidence kept appearing. More files, more records, more victims. The lies were finally collapsing. Then Ethan said something unexpected. Any ship that chooses to leave this battle may leave safely. Shock spread across both sides. Several officers stared at him. Even Reyes looked surprised. He was giving the enemy a choice. Not surrender. A choice. No punishment. No retaliation. Simply a chance to walk away. For nearly a minute nothing happened. Then one destroyer turned around. A small movement. Almost invisible. Then another ship followed. Then 10 more. Then 50. Then hundreds. Across the battlefield, vessels began abandoning the circle. Not because they feared death. Because they finally understood the truth. Within an hour, nearly 1/3 of the enemy force had withdrawn. The circle watched in horror. Their empire had always depended on obedience. Now obedience was disappearing. And with it, their power. Inside the circle's hidden command station, panic spread. The woman who had guided the organization for decades stared at the latest reports. Fleet losses, political collapses, arrest warrants, system uprisings. Everything was falling apart. Years of planning, generations of influence, gone. Governor Zeron looked terrified. This cannot be happening. Nobody answered, because it was happening, and there was no way to stop it. The woman finally stood. For the first time, uncertainty appeared on her face. We proceed with the final protocol. The room became silent. Several members immediately looked uncomfortable. One of them shook his head. No. She looked at him. You have another solution? He didn't. Nobody did. The final protocol had always been the emergency option. The option nobody wanted. The option capable of causing unimaginable destruction. But now they believed they had no choice. If they lost power, they would face justice. And many preferred disaster over accountability. The order was given. Deep beneath the command station, ancient machines awakened. Weapons older than most governments began activating. Weapons hidden from the public for centuries. Back on the flagship, alarms suddenly erupted. Officers rushed toward their stations. Energy readings flooded the screens. Reyes studied the incoming data. Then her expression changed. Ethan, he immediately noticed. What is it? Her answer chilled the room. They're trying to trigger a stellar collapse. Several officers froze. A stellar collapse. One of the most destructive events imaginable. If successful, entire systems could be erased. Not cities. Not planets. Entire star systems. Millions would die. Perhaps billions. The circle had finally revealed its true nature. If they could not rule the galaxy, they were willing to burn parts of it. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Ethan gave his orders. Every ship in the silent fleet accelerated. The final race had begun. Not toward victory, toward survival. The battle that followed would be studied for centuries. Warships exchanged fire across millions of kilometers. Defense platforms shattered. Carrier groups collapsed. Energy storms filled space. Yet despite the scale of the conflict, the true fight remained focused on a single objective. Stop the stellar collapse. Every minute mattered. Every second counted. Inside the enemy command station, circle leaders desperately protected the activation sequence. They knew their time was ending. The weapon represented their last chance. Then something happened they never expected. Their own forces began turning against them. Officers refused orders. Security teams surrendered. Technicians disabled systems. The truth had spread too far. People no longer believed the circle deserved protection. Years of fear were breaking apart. And once fear disappears, control often follows. By the time Ethan's forces reached the station, resistance was already collapsing. The battle ended not with destruction, but with surrender. One by one, circle leaders were arrested. One by one, the people who had hidden behind power finally faced consequences. Only Governor Zeron remained. He stood alone inside the command chamber. The same man who once believed himself untouchable. The same man who ordered suffering without hesitation. Now there was nowhere left to run. Ethan entered the room. For several seconds, neither spoke. Zeron looked older, smaller. The confidence was gone. Fear remained. "You've won," he said quietly. Ethan looked at him. "No." The governor frowned. "No?" Ethan shook his head. This was never about winning. For the first time, Zeron seemed confused. Then Ethan continued. "It was about stopping people like you from deciding who gets to suffer." The governor lowered his eyes. He had no answer, no excuse, no defense, only consequences. Security officers escorted him away. And just like that, it was over. Months later, the galaxy looked very different. Investigations spread across dozens of systems. Corrupt officials were removed. Hidden prisons were closed. Resources returned to the worlds that needed them. It was not perfect. Nothing ever is. But it was better. For the first time in generations, people felt hope. As for the Silent Fleet, its future surprised everyone. Many expected Ethan to seize power. Many expected humanity to become rulers of the galaxy. Instead, Ethan made a different choice. The fleet would return to the shadows. Not because humanity was weak. Because power was never the goal. Peace was. One final message was broadcast before the fleet departed. Citizens across thousands of worlds listened. Ethan's voice carried across the stars. Strength is not measured by how much fear you create. He paused. It is measured by how much suffering you prevent. Then he looked toward the camera one last time. My wife believed every life mattered. This future exists because she never stopped believing that. The transmission ended. The Silent Fleet vanished. And with it, one chapter of history closed. Years later, children would learn about the conflict in school. Many remembered the battles. Many remembered the secrets. Many remembered the fall of the circle. But the lesson that survived longest was much simpler. A healer chose compassion when nobody else did. A human never forgot that kindness. And together, even after death, they changed the course of the galaxy. Moral of the story. Real strength is not shown when people have power over others. Real strength is shown when they use their power to protect others. Kindness may seem small in the moment, but a single act of compassion can change lives, shape history, and inspire courage across generations. And among the stars, Lyra's legacy remained a reminder that the greatest victories are not built on revenge alone. They are built on the people we choose to protect. Thanks for watching. See you in next video.